Hello and welcome to the Ind AS series learning. And today we are going to learn Ind AS 2, which is inventories. What does the standard actually include? It details on the valuation of inventories that includes what are the costs to be included and excluded and what is the cost formula. So it is mainly the valuation of the inventories and the process is being explained. Then, once we know the value, then how is the inventories to be measured? Whether it is the cost or net realizable value, it is whichever is lower. So that is the measurement principle. Next, the standard also covers the recognition of the expense, like the inventories which is there as an asset or once it is being sold, like when this particular asset needs to be recognized as an expense, write off or write down to the net realizable value, or in case of any reversals to the NRV, all these are being explained in the standards. And of course, as every standard has its disclosures, even in days 2 has certain disclosures to be done. Now we'll proceed further on what are the exclusions. So the standard has two kinds of exclusion. One is that the entire standard is not applicable, and the other exclusion is the only the measurement of inventories is alone not applicable. So the following categories for which the entire standard is not applicable, which are financial instruments, because there is a separate standard in DAS 32 and 109 pertaining to that. Biological assets, agricultural activities, or produce at the time of harvest, because there is a separate standard which is in DAS 41. So, in these two cases, the entire standard is not applicable. However, with respect to the measurement of the inventories alone, it is not applicable. This standard is not applicable. That is, producers of agricultural products produce after the harvest, in that case, which is net realizable value, when the net realizable value is being used. In those cases, measurement principles are not being used from this standard. And once again, minerals and ores for which NRV is being used, once again, the measurement principles are being not being used from these standard, which means that for these categories, the other requirements on disclosures would continue to be applicable. Okay, this means that only for these two products where there is a well established market practice and there is negligible risk and hence NRV is being used for measurement, the measurement principles or the cost formulas which is being explained in this standard is not applicable. Another category is the broker trader, in which case fair value less cost is being calculated. Once again, the measurement principles are not applicable. Now let us deep dive into the biological assets because this is bit tricky. So when I say biological asset, it means the agricultural products, livestock, when it is the producer's point of view. So what happens is at the time of harvest, what happens? Ind AS 41 is applicable, so the initial recognition will be fair value less cost to sell. And in this case, Ind AS 2 is fully excluded, as we saw in the earlier slide. But what happens for these agriculture products or livestock from the perspective of a producer of the agriculture products and livestock after harvest? In that case, there are two categories. If it is measured at NRV, net realizable value, once again, we saw that the measurement policies uh, is being excluded. In days, measurement principles are not applicable. If it is measured at cost, then what happens? Ind AS measurement principles is applicable. However, in both these cases, the disclosure principles of Ind AS 2 is applicable. Okay, now what is in the case of a trader? If instead of a producer is what the example we saw. However, if there is a trader of agricultural products and livestock, if there is a trader, then what happens whether Ind AS 2 will be applicable? Yes, Ind AS 2 measurement would be applicable. So the difference is only with respect to when the agriculture products, producer of the agriculture product after the harvest, and if NRV is being followed, only then the measurement principles of Ind AS 2 won't be applicable. If the cost principles, if the agriculture products are being measured at cost, then once again the entire Ind AS 2 would be applicable. So that was a clarification. Let me give you an illustration. Producer of agricultural products produces sesame seeds. He also makes sesame oil out of 50% of the produce. So what does he have in his inventory? He has sesame seed and sesame oil. Now, I open a question to you. How is the disclosure, how is the Ind AS 2 applicability at the time of harvest and after the harvest? So, as we saw in the earlier example, at the time of harvest, the entire standard won't be applicable. However, if it is after harvest, if NRV is being used, then the measurement principles of Ind AS 2 won't be applicable. If the sesame seed is being valued at cost, then of course the entire Ind AS 2 would be applicable. What in case of sesame oil? This is the question for you. I would look forward to pause the video and think about the answer we will be seeing in the next slide. Pause the video. I hope you had seen through what could be the answer. So, the inventory includes sesame seed and sesame oil. So, in sesame seed, we have two categories. One is what happens to sesame seed at the time of harvest. We already have seen that Ind AS 41 would be applicable, so Ind AS 2 is completely not applicable. How about after harvest? There are two categories. If it is being valued at NRV, then Ind AS 2 measurement alone won't be applicable, provided there is an active market and there is negligible risk. So NRV is being adopted. After harvest, if the inventory is valued at cost, then in days to measurement will be applicable. However, in either scenarios, the disclosure requirements as per Ind AS 2 is applicable. How about sesame oil? Ind AS 2 would be applicable. That means you need to take lower of the cost or net realizable value, whichever is lower. I hope this video I was able to give you a brief on about Ind AS 2, the applicability, and giving in-depth understanding on the exclusions. In the next part, we will be learning further on the cost to be included and more examples in similar scenarios. Thank you.